Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 16 of the Arc Analytics Weekly Workshop. Today, we're going to look at space strategy and governance. And this is a super important topic in the realm of Qlik Cloud, just because it kind of underpins so much of how you organize everything that you do, all of your data and applications, how you allow folks to see certain things and do certain things. So really important, and we're going to dive right into it here. So let's see. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of general, like the ethos of spaces. Essentially, again, this is a really important for staying organized, for staying governed and doling out access, and being able to develop data applications efficiently and allowing folks to have the right permissions to do what they need to do without seeing more than they need to see as far as accessing data and things like that. So the gist of a space in general is that it is a sort of a logical container, even a physical container, for a given project or type of data, right? So a super easy example would be sales, right? So you might want to group together data sets around sales. So like sales fact tables, sales reps, things like that, customers, and then also be able to build apps off of that data. So when you have a sales space, a shared space, you can create what you need to create as far as dashboards or any other Qlik products like machine learning models and things like that. And it's all kind of within this logical container. But now, if you have really simple use cases or small teams that move really quickly and work really collaboratively and have more of a flattened hierarchical structure as far as who is allowed to see what data, you can probably get away with just sticking to using a single space, right, for a given project or team or whatever. But for larger organizations, enterprise type organizations, it's really important to have your spaces organized and set up in a really structured way. So a common way to do that in Qlik Cloud is to have different spaces for each lifecycle of the dashboards or the data, products that you're doing using. So, for example, shared spaces and managed spaces are the kind of two types of spaces that you can utilize in order to break this out. So, just looking at this really quickly, shared spaces are collaborative. You are working with other Qlik developers or stakeholders to physically go in, load the data in a Qlik application, build out the data model, create the visualizations, charts, tables, whatever. All of that is happening, and you can do that with other folks in a shared space. So, given that it's meant to be collaborative, the permissions for those shared spaces are a little more permissive, right? And you can still dole out access to where, folks can only do certain things, but by design, the shared spaces are meant to be a little more open, right? So once you have access to a shared space, the intention is that you can go in and contribute to building these apps and using this data. If we use our sales example, so you could have a development space, and this is a shared space where your sales team, report writers, or data experts can go in and create these sales applications, right? Using the sales data. So now managed spaces are going to be a little more restrictive, and these are meant for the end users, the folks that are not building or designing or anything like that, the dashboards, and using the data directly. These are folks that just need the finished product, right? This is live production, immutable. This is where things go to be published for the end users, the business users. So if we stick to our sales example, this might be having folks collaboratively develop these sales applications using the sales data in the dev space, which is a shared space. But then those apps, once they're ready to be live and consumed by the end user, those can be published to a managed space, which has a little more, again, restriction around what folks can do. All right. So now, what is super common in any sort of development life cycle is needing to go through staging or testing or UAT, whatever, you can do that, using these spaces. So to expand our sales example, you might have a shared space for development, and then you could have a shared space or a managed space for testing, where specific stakeholders or project managers or whatever, the folks that aren't necessarily there to develop, but there to kick the tires, validate the data, see if the UI works well. Those folks can do that from a separate test space. So it's not live yet. It's still expected that the apps will go through other iterations and changes. But then you have this really clean 3-space structure where you develop in one, then you test in the second, and then once all the changes are finalized and approved and whatever, then that app can be published to the managed space where end users have the least amount of access to like raw data or being able to edit things, but they see that final product in that space. So that is the gist of it, right? So let's actually look at a quick example. So this is a sales example that I was using, and basically the top box, that blue box, is we're imagining our dev space. So that dev space has data files in that space, logically, physically, whatever, both in that space. So I have, for example, a sales fact CSV file, a sales reps CSV file, and a customer CSV file, just for examples. So from this kind of data repo within this dev space, I can load those files into apps that I'm working on with other developers in my sales space. So we're imagining here a sales forecasting dashboard and a sales commissions dashboard. Well, now once I've developed that with my fellow developers and I'm ready to test it, I can move those apps to a test space. So now key stakeholders, project managers, whoever can go in and, like I said before, kick the tires, test things out, see how things look. But it's logically in that space. And then once testing is done, validated, and these apps are ready to be published, they can be published to that separate managed space. And that's where the end user, the business user, are going to go in. There are a few extra lines in this diagram just to show that you can have data that lives in one space, but that data, if you have the right permissions, that data can be used in other spaces. So this is an example where these sales data files, they can be used to create the app in the dev space. But then if you need to reload those apps on a regular basis, in order for data validation to happen, those data files can be used in the apps that you have in the test space or in the managed space, right? So you can work from the same set of data in each of these 3 spaces. You don't have to, of course, if you have sort of like dev data, prod data, staging data. If your data also follows a life cycle, you can have data in your test space, you can have data in your managed space. You can still work off of that same lifecycle approach. But this just shows that, you have the flexibility to use data from different spaces, whatever works for your project. So now, just to kind of drive it home, and I'll continue using the same sales example. I'm going to share my screen here. If I can find the button, here we go. Okay, so let me see. Oh, window. There we go. Okay. Okay, so I'm sharing the catalog view of Qlik Cloud. And so what I've done here is I've gone to my sales dev space. Okay, and this is again, a shared space, which is meant to be collaboratively or, used by developers to collaboratively create and develop and work on these Qlik dashboards and what have you. And so in this scenario, I've got 2 apps, the sales commissions app, the sales forecast app, and a couple of data files, right? Similar to what I showed in that diagram just now. So what I can do is I can go in, I can open up these apps and work on them. And again, I can, it doesn't have to just be me. Other developers who are in this space can go in and work on them using these data files. And then I can either publish or move, like duplicate or move these apps to the testing space here, right? There's nothing in here right now, but I can make it so that other folks who have access to this testing space can go in and kick the tires. And then finally, we have the managed space, the sales managed space. And this is the most restrictive. This is the business users and end users using this. So again, really nice to have things organized. It makes it really easy to have a built-in organizational kind of unit within Qlik Cloud, these spaces. Because again, you can keep your apps, your data, and all of the other myriad data products or tools that you have access to, including data flows, data tables, scripts, recipes rather, things like that. So now what do the permissions look like? So how the permissions work is essentially whoever has management rights, right? Like an admin or an analytics admin, they will be able to add people, groups, and set the permissions at either level. So if I go to the space settings here and I go to members for this managed sales space, I can immediately see who is a member of this space. And again, this can be users and groups. This can be if you have like Azure Entra set up for SAML or whatever as your IDP, then you can be seeing your users and groups, your AD groups, federated here and synchronized. So this is really powerful, obviously, because for a large enterprise organization, you don't want to manage individual members. That's a nightmare. So the big thing to do is groups. Now, I have a small test environment here, so I don't really have a lot of groups, but this shows two members, myself and then as test user. And for me, I'm the owner, so I have full access to this whole space, right? But we can see what some of the other permissions are that I can assign to other users or groups. So I can make it super restrictive so you can only see the dashboard. And you can still interact with it and drill in and things like that, but then you wouldn't be able to necessarily create data alerts or subscriptions or export data, right? So super restrictive would be this option. Otherwise, I could kind of step that up and allow users to like create notes and alerts and export data, things like that. And then it kind of goes, more and more permissive from there, right? Where you can contribute, like you can duplicate a sheet and make changes to it, things like that. And then next level down would be being able to manage it. There's also some specific permissions for being able to consume the data files, right? So again, there's kind of like that logical barrier of like a space can have data files like CSVs, QVDs, Parquet, what have you, Excel, and then the kind of Qlik entities, right? A Qlik application, a dashboard, a table recipe, a data flow, whatever. So this is saying specifically, a person with just this permission will be able to view the data files, but not necessarily the apps or anything like that. Otherwise, I can see who can publish or give out the permission to publish to this space. And then otherwise, control like reloads and schedules around the applications in the space. So I can really break it down pretty granularly what I want folks to be able to do, right? And then again, just to illustrate it here, you can set this for anyone in your organization, anyone that's logged in to your tenant, right? You can set some sort of base level permission, like maybe, this again, sort of a flatter structure. Everyone in my organization should be able to see sales data, just as an example, right? I can set that here, right, to be able to view the apps in this space. Otherwise, I can, again, either do individual users, just like this, or you can add groups, just like that. So I can add a bunch of groups to be able to do certain things. So, the folks that are in that leadership Active Directory group, they can see high level stuff and maybe add notes and create subscriptions. Maybe I have certain vendors that are kind of guest accounts that they can see some things, but not other things. Maybe they're the most restrictive. Otherwise, I have like program managers that might need to be able to do more and set reloads and whatever. So that's how we can split it up here. Now, beyond that, if I go back and look at the shared space, one of my shared spaces, dev here, you get kind of a similar set of a similar setup, right? Where you can be based on, you can give permission based on individuals or groups, or just everyone across the board in your organization, right? And then the actual permissions here are, again, a little more permissive, right? Just in general, because this is a shared space. It's meant for collaboration. Sorry. So you get some of the same ones, being able to view everything in the space and being able to, create notes and subscriptions, export data, and then otherwise being able to edit, right? So that's the big one for being able to collaborate with other developers, is being able to edit the applications therein. And there it splits it out to be able to, you can have access to this space and create your own apps in this space, but I can't mess with other people's apps that they've created in this space. That would be this one. This next one down would allow you to work on all of the apps in this space, right? And then there's being able to manage the space, add other people, things like that. And then again, similar to that last one, just being able to consume the data files, right? So just to drive home that point, why would I want to be able to access the data files but not the apps, right? Well, you might have a scenario where you need to create an app that kind of pulls data out of multiple spaces, right? So I might need to be able to access our customers list in this space, but then need to be able to access our HR data in our HR space for whatever reason and bring that into one app. This way, I can pull in the data files from these spaces into my own project, but it won't explicitly give me the ability to view the apps that are already in this space. So that's just kind of the breakout there. So anyways, that is kind of our overview of how Qlik Cloud lets you stay organized, stay governed, and operate efficiently using the spaces kind of entities. And it's the one of the key ways that you're going to allow folks in your organization to view things and to do things within Qlik Cloud. It's just that organizational unit that it allows you to view the data or the applications in my sales space, but not my HR space, or vice versa. Or I'm sort of like a higher level leadership person. I can see more, right? But maybe not do as much, right? So that's kind of the idea here, and it's a really powerful feature. Comes right out of the box, and it is maybe one of the most important aspects of Qlik Cloud. And so we'll end it there. That's kind of the gist. Appreciate y'all watching our weekly workshop series. Make sure to keep up with us on LinkedIn, on our website, arcanalytics.co, and as well as the Arc Academy for Qlik school community. That's skool.com. Find us on there, interact with us, and we'll see you on the next one.